I can't do
Sophia,
with fat people. No, it's not okay to be fat.
Start with this as a basis, right? So
No,
this
I can't look at that. Sorry. Do you want a fat person waddling? They can't walk because their thighs are so big.
Yeah, but I do believe in physics. Drop the calorie intake and increase the calorie expenditure, you will lose weight. I can look at people and say, this person is overweight and does not take care of themselves.
I don't think you should though.
Why not?
Because that's unfair. You don't know that person.
I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. I have known women who were born fat and they have starved themselves into eating disorders because of perspectives like that.
What do you think the core message of the body positivity movement is at the moment? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Common Ground Conversations, where we ask the important but controversial questions and then try to find common ground. Now, in today's episode, we're back at Flinders Street Station, Melbourne, and we're going to be asking the question, body positivity, is it healthy or has it become an excuse for unhealthy fat acceptance? Let's see what people have to say. Body positivity sounds pretty good, right? Everybody's got a body, so why not be positive about it? Well, think again, because behind the seemingly noble branding of the movement are growing concerns with regard to the quality of advice coming from the space and its so-called models.
Oh no, she didn't!
And if we're calling a spade, let's be real. Plus size is just a 21st century code word for being fat. Now, what's the current state of affairs? In Australia, 1 in 4 children and 2 in 3 adults are overweight or obese. In the US, the figures are similar and worsening. From 2000 to 2020, the obesity prevalence increased from roughly 31% to 42%. Keep that trend up, and in 20 years, 1 in 2 people, half of the population, is not just overweight, but obese, and at a completely avoidable risk of all the associated health complications. So yes, we have a problem, and yes, it needs addressing, not a euphemistic sweeping under the rug. So let's come back to fundamentals. What exactly is body positivity? According to Wiki, the gold standard of online referencing, quote, body positivity is a social movement focused on the acceptance of all bodies, regardless of size, shape, skin tone, gender, and physical abilities, while challenging present-day beauty standards as an undesirable social construct, end quote. Where we can find common ground here is that people should respect their bodies. You only get one, so take care of it. And further, Mother Nature does not endow her gifts evenly. God does have favorites. We're each dealt a set of cards at birth. We might not have won the genetic lottery. You might be short. I might have asymmetric features. Some other person might have a severe physical deformity. But what are we going to do about it? Complain for the rest of our lives, or accept what we can't change and focus on what we can? If body positivity means taking good care of your body whilst also accepting that which you cannot change and focusing on what you can, then I am all aboard. Where I take issue with the movement is the propagation of scientific lies.
Stop the cap.
And worse, some of the claims aren't just lies, they are literal untruths. They run in direct opposition to what is verifiably true. The two main claims I take issue with are 1, you can be healthy at every size, and 2, everyone is beautiful. Both are false, and here's why. Firstly, the claim that you can be healthy at every size. According to the CGC, being overweight puts you at, quote, increased risk of many serious health diseases and health conditions, end quote, including, according to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, quote, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, some musculoskeletal conditions, and some cancers, end quote, just to name a few. Further, as the level of excess weight increases, so does the risk of developing these conditions. So in short, being fat is unequivocally unhealthy. To claim otherwise means you've never seen a severely overweight individual try to function normally in society, or you're overly committed to a misguided body positivity tenet that flies in the face of both common sense and science.
What you're using is common sense. And I hate common sense.
Now the second claim, everyone is beautiful. I will give the devil its due here. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but unfortunately for the ardent social constructionists out there, our eyes and our instincts are largely a product of, dare I say it, the dreaded B word. Biology. There is an evolutionary reason why most women are attracted to muscular men, Adonis, as opposed to fat and sloppy dad bods, and why most men are attracted to fit chicks with hourglass physiques, not obese body positivity activists. This everyone is beautiful attitude is born of a pathological overcompassion that at all costs wants to protect people's feelings. For those of you familiar with Jordan Peterson or Carl Jung's work, this, as far as I'm concerned, is a manifestation of the archetypal devouring mother. To put it simply, lads, it doesn't matter how many times your mummy says you're beautiful just the way you are. And ladies, it doesn't matter how many Yas queens you get from the girls. If you are fat, you are factually unattractive to the large majority of the opposite sex. The truth can hurt, but if you have the character to stomach it, it can also be good to know. Now, to be uber clear before we dive into things, saying that someone should lose weight because they hold an unhealthy amount of body fat is not the same as saying that person has no moral worth. For those of you itching to get offended, save it. Let's not deliberately misinterpret a perfectly reasonable position rooted in science and bodily respect as fat-phobic or an assault on one's moral worth. It's not denying the existence or the validity of fat people. And no, that is not my skinny privilege speaking. And lastly, I'd like to finish with a quote from Will Smith. Self-discipline is self-love. Perhaps all of this comes down to a perverse sense of what it means to love yourself.
What is love?
Self-love shouldn't mean gluttony and inadequate exercise in the name of so-called acceptance and positivity. Is it really self-love to accept your unhealthy behaviors? Is it really self-love to be positive about how poorly you're taking care of this one and only body that you have been gifted? With all that said, you now have some context, you now know my position. Let's dive into the first conversation of the day. Enjoy. Today's question is body positivity. Is it healthy? Or has it become an excuse for unhealthy fat acceptance? What do you think?
I'd like to start by saying I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. I'm recovered from both of those. I had treatment at the Royal Children's
Thank you
Hospital.
for being so forthright.
Thank you. And I have been clinically underweight. I have been medically underweight. I have suffered immensely because I was underweight. There are numerous studies that have proven that being 10 pounds underweight or a few kilos underweight is far more dangerous for your health and mental health, physical health, than being what we classify as overweight. Have you heard of the BMI system?
Yeah, I have.
So that BMI system wasn't made by a doctor, it was made by a mathematician, and he wasn't actually looking at individual people's bodies. So everybody is different. A medication I might take might be really good for me and it might do some adverse things to you. Same for food, same for everything in our lives. Just
to clarify,
Yeah.
I wonder whether we can find common ground here with the BMI scale.
Yeah.
I know that it's a crude measure of to be used for something like where is there a healthy or unhealthy body fat percentage. I do think that it still has some utility.
For sure, it gives a very rough scale about where someone's weight might sit appropriately for them. For some people, having lots of body fat might be unhealthy for them, and then in another person, if they tried to lose that weight, it may cause very dire side effects for them. Some people have absolutely no health issues at all in what we see as fat, and there's nothing wrong with being fat. You may have medical issues, but I had severe medical issues as an underweight person. It really depends on the individual. Fat acceptance is really just about saying, as a fat person,
I'd love to unpack each of these terms with you. So, body positivity.
Body positivity.
What does that mean for you? What do you think is the? Perhaps I'd love to ask, what does that mean for you?
For me,
but then also, what do you think the core message of the body positivity movement is at the moment?
At its core, it's about saying regardless of the size of your body, whether you're thin or fat, you're still worthy of acceptance and love. Maybe you're trying to lose...
we can find common
Yeah,
ground.
exactly. Maybe you're trying to lose weight, maybe you're trying to maintain your weight. It's really just about saying in a society that very highly prioritizes thinness over fatness, it's still saying you're worthy of acceptance, you don't deserve to be ridiculed or bullied or made to feel lesser than a thin person.
I think where it gets tricky is how do we define love, right? Because if we say that regardless of your weight, you are worthy of love and you ought to have a loving relationship with your body, what does that look like? Because for some people, and this kind of takes me down the rabbit hole of conditional and unconditional love. One of the quotes that I love is by Will Smith, and he said that self-love is discipline. It's having the discipline to say, I love my body too much to feed it an unhealthy amount of calories to the point where, and to not take care of it, say with exercise, to the point where I have an amount of body fat that is unhealthy. So, do you see, whereas another person might say that love means no matter what, you should be content with your body.
Contentness isn't necessarily dependent on love. I think love is just saying you can be as you are. There shouldn't be such a negative emphasis on your body. Maybe you are overweight, maybe you do want to lose that weight, and you've decided that's in your best interest for you. That's fine, but we shouldn't. I think it comes down to love in that. we shouldn't look at a person and say you need to change because of my belief. It should really be up to the individual.
So let's say,
Yeah.
for example, that there was someone, I'd love to run this experiment, this kind of thought experiment with you, where we do it for an overweight person and then an underweight person. So let's say that we had a severely overweight person, and to the point where it was clearly unhealthy. And do you think that they ought to be told you are at an unhealthy weight and you ought to take better care of your body by doing ABC? And then flip side of that question, would you give the same messaging to someone who's underweight?
I think what it comes down to is I think there's a really missed idea is that you can be what we classify as overweight or fat and have absolutely no issues with your body. There are many women with polycystic ovarian disease who we look at and say, you're fat, but it's a metabolic issue, and they still may have healthy bodies otherwise. It's simply the way their metabolism works that they are fatter than other people. Same for people with thyroid
I imagine
issues.
I imagine that they would still have, I want to acknowledge the point that there may be some exception cases where there are other variables that make it very, very, very difficult for people to be at a healthy weight.
Yeah.
But even those people who are at a heavier weight or have a higher body fat percentage, I imagine that they would also still be at greater risk of things like heart disease.
Yeah, and
so
that is quite a recognised thing in our culture, but again, it's entirely up to the individual. I can't look at your body and say you have X, Y, and Z wrong with you or right with you because of the way your body looks.
Yeah.
And you can't say the same for me. I can't say to a fat person you have this wrong with you or you have this problem.
This might be where we part ways in terms of common ground, but I want to share with you my position. Let's see where we can kind of put our finger on where we disagree. So I kind of think of a color gradient where if we were looking at yellow and how it gradually turns into, say, orange, you and I, if I asked you, hey, where does it become orange? You might draw a particular line, and I might say, well, I think the line is a little bit this way, but we can still agree that there is a yellow over there and an orange over here. And I would say we can do the same thing with weight, where we can say, here is a healthy-ish range around this area, but we can very clearly point over there and say that is an unhealthy underweight individual, and this is an unhealthy overweight individual. Would we find common ground there?
I would disagree because health is subjective. Again, are you a doctor? Have you studied medicine? Are you a doctor?
I actually did study medicine for 4 years.
Okay, well then.
No, but I get your point.
Yeah, but unless you had an individual patient, and I guess you'd assessed all of their medical needs, all of their background, all of their history, their predispositions for certain illnesses, we probably wouldn't be able to just look at a person on the street and tell them what might be wrong with their body. Again, it comes down to the individual level.
Okay, so if we saw, you tell me whether my sense is wrong here, but my sense is I could look at someone, and if they are morbidly obese, I could point to them and say that person is unhealthy. In the same way that someone who is severely underweight, I could point to them and say they're unhealthy.
For sure.
Do we find common ground there?
That's an extreme, but
Okay.
it's just looking, when we look at fat acceptance and body positivity, it's really just saying that fat person, even though they're fat, they don't deserve to be ridiculed. They're worthy of sexual love, of romantic love, of acceptance in their community. Because
this is so interesting. I want to unpack that with you.
Sure.
So something that I think, again, we can come back to common ground where I think that anyone, regardless of their weight, should feel a sense of self-worth and know that I think they should have a positive relationship with their body. Right? And I don't think anyone would question that. Where we might differ is, I do think that in terms of feeling like you're worthy of sexual a love or what perhaps attraction from the opposite sex.
Do you disagree?
Yeah, I do disagree, and let me tell you why. And again, you point out where you think I might misstep. My sense is that, say, I'm a biological male and I'm attracted to biological females, and I think that it's my responsibility to become the type of partner that is attractive to the person that I'm trying to attract.
Exactly.
So and so if I were overweight, it's to me, it seems like quite an entitled position to say, I deserve sexual or love in the form of sexual attraction from the opposite sex, when I wonder whether the more realistic and perhaps more productive messaging is, if you would like to attract somebody, you ought to consider what exactly they're attracted to, and then what actions do you need to take to become that person.
I think that's very subjective again, and I have known women who were born fat and they had fat bodies from the time they were children to becoming adult women, and they have starved themselves into eating disorders because of perspectives like that, because they believe that they're not worthy of sexual love or attention, and they have starved themselves into horrible illnesses like the one I went through. I want to come back to what you said about discipline.
Yeah, I'd love to also hear just on that. What do you think then? So for someone who's grown up perhaps overweight their entire life, they become an adult, they decide to change their behaviours, and obviously that seems like quite an extreme measure that doesn't seem productive. I think we would agree that starving yourself is
when there's
good.
such a hateful message in our culture.
Would you say that's hateful?
Yeah, I would. I would say
Okay.
when people are called...
What is it hateful about what the messaging that I said?
I would say if you say someone's not worthy of love, of sexual love, because of the way their body looks, that's your opinion, but you don't get to dictate that for anyone else. You don't get to say what everyone else might be attracted to, or if someone's worthy of receiving affection, because everybody is.
Yeah.
And
But would you say that on average, people tend to be attracted to people who are within a healthy weight range?
I would, because of our culture's emphasis on thinness within the beauty standard.
Do you think that without that, people would be attracted to fat people?
I think they might be attracted to whatever they fancy. It's really, it's not a set measure. Of course, it's influenced by our culture, but everybody is attracted to different things. People are attracted to different people,
Yes.
different hair
I would just say,
lengths.
on average, people tend to be attracted to people who are within a healthy weight range.
Or within the ideal of thinness, because of our culture's emphasis on thinness being beautiful.
Interesting. I'm not sure that we'll find common ground there, because I don't think that it's just culture. I think that there's also
Would you say it's
a
societal?
nature, as in the nurture side of things.
Yeah.
I think there's a combination. Yeah, I think there's a combination.
Of course, physical strength, physical agility, muscle, biologically, that might show that's a partner who can provide for me if we were out in the wild, if we were battling animals, whatever, trying to survive.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Why don't you apply that to something like being overweight? Because I might see an overweight woman and think I wouldn't be surprised if, evolutionarily speaking, I have evolved to spot someone who is unhealthily overweight and say that actually represents a liability to my offspring.
Well, if we go, it's really cultural, because if we go back to Renaissance era, being fat was considered a sign of wealth. It meant you could provide for yourself. It meant that you ate well.
Yes.
That was desirable. It showed that you had cultural status.
So
Again, it's societal.
This is where I do agree with you, that there is an element of nurture, but I also believe there is an element of nature. So I guess it's a little boring, but I'm in the middle. So I don't think it's all social, but I also don't think it's all nature. So if we flip that, right, and again, I appreciate you being forthcoming with your own experience. I've also been quite close to some people who have gone through anorexia and bulimia for that matter. With someone who is severely underweight, what is the messaging that they need to hear when it comes to body positivity? And is it the same messaging that you would give to someone who is severely overweight?
Usually those people are extremely medically ill, and there's not really anything I can say, because recovery is everyone's own individual process. It's a very severe mental illness, and often it is brought on by cultural factors.
And I'm sorry to jump in.
That's okay.
Why do you say that those individuals are severely medically ill, but then you don't say that for overweight people?
When we go through starvation, our brain chemistry changes. Different to that of a fat person or a person with a healthy or average body type.
Let's just say morbidly obese. Let's say morbidly obese. So would you not say that they also have an illness?
If they had a binge eating disorder, if that was a diagnosed eating disorder, for sure. The dopamine in our brains and what we go through in our thought process, if that was a diagnosed eating disorder, for sure it would be similar. When we starve ourselves, we get those chemical highs. When we binge, we get those chemical highs. But again, it's something you need to work through with a health professional and your support team to recover from. Really, I just want to end with body positivity is about saying it doesn't matter what stage your body is at, where you are in terms of your journey, what you look like. It's just that you're worthy of love, that you don't deserve to be bullied starting from when you're little going in school, that you're rejected or ridiculed as you grow up. It's really just about, at its core, saying everybody is worthy, and no one should be shamed or ridiculed or go through pain simply because of the body that they're in.
Body. One last question before I let you go. I want to be respectful of your time here. Do you think that there is a healthy amount of shame to experience when you do things that you know you shouldn't? Say, for example, eating in a severe caloric surplus.
Should I? But the same thing goes for any kind of vice. Would I shame you for maybe drinking on a night out with your friends or smoking cigarettes or doing drugs?
So do you think that
I wouldn't do that? Because,
me personally, do you think that I should feel a sense? Let's say, for example, I was smoking and I know that smoking is very bad for me. Is there a healthy amount of shame for me to experience as an emotional catalyst to actually stop the negative behavior?
For sure. And smoking, I would say, is a bit different in that the bodies we're in are often genetically determined. I was born in a thinner body. I was in an underweight body while I was ill, a very underweight body. But often we can't change in a second the way we look. And really, I just want little girls to go and grow up and not feel like they have to change the size of their thighs, or that because they're in a bigger body they're less worthy than thinner girls growing up alongside them. That's what I want to leave with, because
that's a wholesome message.
Thank you. I want our culture to change.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for listening to me. I appreciate where you're coming from. But I hope our culture can change, and that the people watching this know that you're worthy too, regardless of what stage of your journey you're in.
That's so warm and fluffy to finish on. Thank you.
When I see a woman wearing leggings and she's got layer upon layer upon layer, like stomach and don't wear it.
Where we can start and perhaps find common ground is I've been wanting to just start with this as a basis, right? So
I can't look at that. Sorry. I can't.
I have two questions for you.
Yeah.
One is, would you ever consider that healthy?
No.
Okay. Second, would you ever consider that beautiful?
No.
Okay, and why not?
Because that's...
I'm with you. I agree with you. Okay, I think we find common ground. So what I'm curious about, or I guess also concerned about, is...
How much fat is on that girl?
Too much.
It's way too much fat. First of all, it doesn't look good, because we're not stimulated for that to look good. Elle Macpherson, if she looked like that, would you follow her? No.
I don't know who Elle Macpherson is, but...
You don't know who Elle... Oh my God.
I promise you, I'll have a look after the interview.
Sophia Loren. No. Okay. What about Bella Hadid?
No.
Bella Hadid, you don't know who Bella Hadid is? No. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Okay, I'll have a look after the interview.
Oh my
gorgeous.
God. She's hot, man. She's a hot model. She's a young girl.
So why...
Do you know who The Weeknd is?
Yes.
Gigi Hadid. His ex-girlfriend.
Right, okay. No, I don't know.
Okay.
But I'm curious as to... Do you think it's important that young girls be told there is such a thing as... well, it seems to be there's kind of a shared sense of what beauty is.
Yeah, of course there is. That's age old.
And okay, so I'm curious as to why are young people in particular, and maybe it's also older people, being told that that's not true, that beauty is just a social construct, and that you can be beautiful.
That's bullshit. We've been trained like that. It's been a century-old thing. It's the same. Beauty is beauty, okay? If you're too skinny, it's not beautiful because you're bony and you're skeletal. Too skinny is ugly. It's not good to look at. It doesn't stimulate the mind, doesn't stimulate the thing. So...
And I think so many people are willing to say that.
But it's the
for
truth.
The skinniness.
No.
But they're not willing to say it for the
and I can't do fat people because it's unhealthy and it doesn't look good. It looks shit.
I agree. Okay, so...
Seriously, I mean, do you want a fat person waddling that can't walk because their thighs are so big? Seriously, it's not healthy and it doesn't look good. There's two things. Maybe I'm politically incorrect. I don't give a shit. I'm a 1966 kid. I don't care.
I love that about you. So, what would you say is body positivity done right? All right, let's say to your boys, or let's say you had a young girl, what messaging are you giving them when you are being body positive with them?
Eat healthy, okay? Not too much
How
sugar.
dare you?
Yeah, eat healthy.
Eat healthy.
Not too much sugar. Everything in moderation, apart from sex. Everything else, your alcohol.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Your alcohol, your drugs. Some people like to do drugs, and I'm not going to judge that. Your intake of sugar, your intake of carbohydrates, all that. If you live a healthy lifestyle, your body works properly, your mind works properly, and you can think. People that are overweight have a problem with the way they look. Okay, so they're depressed. Yeah.
Well, some of them, this is my concern as well. Some of them are being told, no, if you feel depressed about your overweightness,
it's bullshit.
It's not the overweightness. It's society telling you.
Bullshit. It's bullshit. And you know what? If they want to live like that, that's fine. Because then when they start getting sick and diabetes and all these other ailments, it's about health.
Okay, so let's say that this person, they start getting the coronary heart disease as a consequence of being overweight, making poor decisions.
Yeah.
They go into the public healthcare system.
Yeah.
You're footing the bill as a taxpayer. Are you cool with that? Do you think that it should be covered?
Yes. Why not?
Interesting.
It's about health. No. When it comes to health, it's not their fault. Like, people gain weight or lose weight not only for health reasons but psychological reasons, and we don't understand the mental side of that. So it's mental health. Exactly. When you're feeling happy, and when you're mentally happy, you don't need to lose weight or gain weight. Does that make sense? I mean, there's more in depth of that, but basically that's what it is. When you're feeling happy and content within yourself, you don't overdo alcohol, drugs.
I see what you mean. Yes,
you know what I mean?
So I think there's a strong case to be made that someone who is severely, like for example, when we see someone with anorexia, we will say there's a mental issue going on here. Right?
Absolutely.
Why? My sense is the exact same for overconsumption of calories. The same way it is underconsumption or starving.
It's the one extreme to the other. Yep, they feed.
So I'm curious, when you, let's say for example that there was another parent, I want you to be brutally honest with me.
I will be.
Let's say I'm a parent.
I'm Greek, that's what we do.
I love it,
okay.
I love it. Let's say that I'm a parent and I might be taking care of my body in the way that I want, and I might be morbidly obese, but you might say, hey, let's say for example, I say it's my body, it's my choice, I do what I want with it. You can have your opinion, but it's mine. What about I have a kid and I'm giving my kid unrestricted access to sugar, highly processed foods. The kid's clearly becoming overweight. I actually had a friend.
You're killing your kid.
So I had a friend who was babysitting these kids, and I think they were maybe 5 and 6.
Yeah.
And to the point where they're struggling to breathe because they're so fat. And the kid thought he was something wrong with him. That's just how he was.
No, that's
right. He didn't realize that there was something to do with his food.
The parent should be accountable for that.
So how so? What do you think should happen in that instance?
How so? Do you teach your kid to go to school to get an education?
Yes.
Do you take your kid to school every day?
Yes.
Okay, why?
I think you should.
Why?
In order to educate.
Okay, so why don't you educate them about how?
You want to kind of empower your kid to become the best version of themselves.
If you want to be a fat and you want to, I shouldn't say that.
It's all right. It's all right.
But you're instilling your values on your kid, on an innocent child that doesn't know any better. Shouldn't you educate him that, hey, too much sugar isn't good for you. It will rot your teeth. It will, you'll be obese. No.
And also, I mean, when you grow up, you won't have perhaps developed the self-discipline.
Okay, you're really young, but when we were young, because I'm 1966, right? So when we were young, we used to play outside. We used to do a lot of physical activity, and we didn't consume food like we do now. Like, I think we consume too much food. We don't need to consume so much food. Food's there to fuel us, to fuel our body, not to, so we can say that, we went fine dining and we went to blah, 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 and we're eating all this food because we can afford it. It's not there for a luxury. It's there to nourish our bodies, but we should do more physical activity, more mental activity, So that's what we're not doing anymore.
So let's say that we're back in that situation where I'm really not setting my kid up for any kind of success. I'm essentially allowing the kid to slowly kill themselves via obesity.
Well, that just goes to show that you're really uneducated.
And what do you think should happen in that instance? Like, is it the role of ever the government to step in and say, hey, we actually need to take care of this kid, or is it your role to educate the parents?
It's the parent, and I think a good support system. If we educate one another, if we're out there saying, hey, these foods aren't good for a young child to stimulate their brain, their focus, their body, I think as a society, it takes a village.
So this is where then again my concern comes back to the messaging that young boys and young girls are being given on social media.
Cut the filters on social media, and then you'll see. It'll make a big difference.
What do you think about? So there's a tram that's been going past for a big major label brand. It's not Nike. It's another one.
Okay.
Right, and it's an obese. Let's call a spade, an obese model, I use that word lightly, on the tram.
So we're making it normal now to be obese. Is that what we're trying to do? We're stimulating normality to being obese?
Is that what you think?
That's shameful. That's shameful. Because it's not normal to be obese.
And it's also, I think we found a lot of common ground in the sense that it's not healthy to tell young people.
No, it's not okay to be fat. Fat is a dirty word. Don't be fat. Be healthy. Look, if you're a little bit overweight, okay, that's fine. But being fat and obese, that's not healthy. Why the hell would we want to normalize something that's not good for you? Then stimulate, do you remember with all the models that were like anorexic Kate Moss and all that looked anorexic and, they looked like a heroine, whatever? Everyone came down on that.
Yeah.
So why are we going it's like the pendulum has to swing the full way. Let's go really obese and fat and ugly and blubber and then go back to normal.
Yeah.
Why?
I agree. We have to be back here.
Yeah,
we have to be back here in the middle.
I can't do that. Sorry, I can't, no. I can't do
Sophia,
the fat people.
Body positivity, is it healthy or has it become an unhealthy excuse for fat acceptance?
Right, okay.
What do the two of you believe and why?
Well, I believe it's very healthy because not only can it be healthy physically, but I think it also can be healthy mentally and also socially. Say if I had a kid.
The three are all intertwined.
Absolutely. So say I have, a child that I want to grow. If I grow up my child with the mentality of as long as you are healthy, as long as you are safe, as long as you are happy, that will project onto other people who will also find safety, healthy and happiness within themselves. Because I find a lot of the time body positivity, especially body negativity, is projected onto other people when they feel that in themselves.
Okay, so I'd love to get right after Jay, I'll come to you now, but then let's unpack in a moment what we mean by body positivity. So if you were to just give like a 1 minute response, which one you think it is, what would you say?
I think it's healthy because I think that there are a lot of people that can't necessarily control what size they are or how they look in that sort of general sense. And so I think to just completely blanket statement it as it's fat acceptance, I don't think is the right way to go about it, because I think a lot of people need that body positivity and need that confidence in themselves because they can't change it. It's not something that they're doing wrong. It's not something that they're doing and going like, this is a bad thing, this is something I want to change. They want to change it if they feel unhealthy. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think where we're going to find a lot of common ground already, I can tell from the jump, is for things that people can't change. I think that, like let's say for example, I was born with this, I think it's on this side of my face, like this little my mum used to call it a beauty spot. And I might have had some issues with that as a kid, but I have to come to terms with that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah.
And different people have different immutable characteristics, and I think it's good that we learn to feel positive about those things because you can't change it, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Absolutely. I heard once, I don't know where I heard it, but I heard someone say if you tell someone something that they can't change in 5 minutes, don't tell them.
Oh, someone said that earlier today.
Yeah,
as well. Yeah,
and
fascinating.
it's so true though. Like, there's no point commenting on someone's fact about themselves if they can't immediately change it. It's just unnecessary and almost rude in a way.
But for I think this might be where we diverge. I don't know, but for something like weight, my sense is you can definitely change your weight. You can change your lifestyle. You can change your eating habits, your exercise habits.
Not necessarily. I only say that because I'm someone who I work out 5 days a week and I eat very healthily, and yet I'm still not what people would consider to be a healthy body type. But I can't control that because this is just the body that I was given. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
even
so
with the healthy
so
lifestyle I lead.
Have you ever tracked your macronutrients?
Yes, I have. It actually
Okay.
led to my eating disorder. So
Interesting. If you don't
yeah.
mind me asking, what was your what was
binge
that like for
eating.
you?
So it was really difficult actually and that's why I'm such a strong advocate for body positivity, because it was, the media and seeing how, you need to look a certain way to be healthy, and it led me to start binge eating, which is basically where you starve yourself and you don't eat, and then you get to a point where you obviously can't starve yourself anymore because you can't live like that.
Yeah, and then you
overeat
yo-yo it
and
back.
you purge. Yeah. And so coming out of that,
just to kind of share here, my sister's actually an emotional and binge eating coach.
Wow, yeah.
And she's been through a lot. She's been through her own journey
Yeah.
of underweight, then overweight, then coming back, to a more healthy balance. So I'm definitely familiar with how.
Yeah.
I mean, even myself, in going on certain diets, if I cut or I calorie restrict too much, try exercise too much, it's very easy to just pop back the other way.
Yeah.
But I would still say that there is, you can find a good range of calorie deficit and exercise in order to lose weight. So can we find common ground on that? Or
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. I just think there's,
do you think that's possible for you?
I think, I don't think that I could get smaller than what I am. Maybe a little bit, yes, but as I said, I've been...
Yeah, why is that?
Well, I've been working out and doing all the things you're supposed to do and all that for about 5 years now, and this is just the way I've ended up at. And
Could it
I also
be-
feel healthy and feel fit and am happy in who I am right now, and so I think that I came to the acceptance of that I am happy where I'm at. I'm not unhealthy, I'm not living an unhealthy lifestyle, and I'm doing all the right things, and so I'm okay with where I'm at.
Do you think it's would we be able to say that you're perhaps unhealthier than what you would be if you were do you have an ideal weight that if you could just snap your fingers you would?
No, I really don't. I have an ideal way of how I want to look and how I want to feel, but weight doesn't actually matter to me.
Okay.
I think that it's so various on your body type, how tall you are, how short you are, and what culture you're living in. And so I just think putting all your effort into I want to get to this number is just ineffective and unhealthy.
Yeah, no, look, I can also empathize with that. Like in going through my own kind of fitness journey, and there have definitely been times where I've been more overweight and more underweight as well, and you don't want to become obsessive about the scales as well, because it's not all about weight. It is, it's worth being more nuanced in terms of, okay, what's my actual goal? Is it a certain body fat percentage? Is it a certain amount of muscle mass? Is it more of a lifestyle goal, whatnot? Thank you for being kind of very forthright with your own experience as well. So,
it kind of just brings it back to the whole point of what we said earlier, that I think it's just being healthy, being happy, and being safe. And as long as you're in those parameters, I don't think it really matters what number, weight you are, what lifestyle you're living, as long as you're happy and healthy and safe.
Okay, so I want to push back a little bit on that, and we'll see where we kind of butt heads and see if we can find some common ground in that middle area. For I guess my concern in particular is for young people, but I guess also just the general population. I think it's worth us saying, hey, there is a certain healthy weight range or body fat percentage range, and then there is an unhealthy body fat percentage range, and we should do our best to stay away from the unhealthy body fat percentage range, whether it's too little or too large, and find that healthy balance in the middle. would we find common ground there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously undeniable. But I think once you kind of get into, obviously, you obviously have way too big and then you have way too little. But when you start going like in between what you consider too big and what someone else considers too little, the closer you get to sort of that range, what is healthy, that does depend on the person.
Yeah.
And that depends on genetics. That depends on how you grew up. That depends on your mental health.
There's also doctors who will say, for
Absolutely.
example, there's a certain body fat percentage that's unhealthy.
Of course.
So-
But that also can depend on your genetics and who you are as a person.
And it depends on where you live as well. Like there are so many different studies and all different doctors say a lot of different things. And yes, there is a common denominator in a lot of them, which is I think the thing. You need to stay within those parameters, yes, but not make them too small and unattainable. for
Okay,
the
yeah,
general population.
okay. And I think another place where we would find common ground is I don't think, in terms of like those parameters, you don't need to look like Brad Pitt to feel
Yeah,
good about yourself. You
exactly.
also don't need to look like Angelina Jolie to feel good about yourself.
Exactly.
Now, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on someone like Tess Holliday.
Yes.
Are you familiar with Tess Holliday?
Yeah.
On the front of
yeah.
Cosmopolitan,
Yeah.
I would consider her obese. Would the two of you also consider her obese?
I think
And would you say that
medically,
she's
yes.
unhealthy?
Medically, I would say she's obese, but I couldn't say she's unhealthy because I don't know how she lives her life.
I agree.
Like, I don't know what she eats. I don't know what she does with her
Isn't
day.
her body the resume of what she eats and what she does with her
Not
day?
necessarily.
Tell me more. What am I missing?
Well, again, there's a lot of genetic factors. I mean,
And also medical factors too.
Yeah.
There are a lot of like PCOS and a lot of medical diseases and problems that contribute to people being bigger set.
Let's say that she wasn't one of those extreme outliers
Hmm.
that does have some kind of severe medical illness that causes her obesity,
Hmm.
and that it was a consequence of her lifestyle choices. Do you think she's a good role model for young people?
I don't think I know enough about her to make an assessment.
Well,
on
let's
that.
say
Yeah.
in regard to her body
Hmm.
and the way that she treats it, assuming that it is a consequence of her lifestyle choices,
Hmm.
is she a good role model?
well, there's a lot of factors into that. I don't know her diet. I don't know her exercise routine.
Wouldn't you say that you know it just by looking at
No,
her? Why?
absolutely.
Why not?
Because I don't know her. I don't know her. And I can't say what your exercise routine is. You can't say what my exercise
But
routine is.
you can look at me and say he looks like he eats a healthy amount
I can't though.
and he takes care of himself.
I can't though.
I think that's where we'll disagree.
Yeah,
Because I think I can look at people and say this person is overweight and does not take care of themselves.
I don't think you should though.
Why not?
Because that's unfair. You don't know that person.
And I also know a lot of people that look very fit that are very unhealthy.
Absolutely.
And that's just purely because they've got good genetics, they've got good metabolisms, they can eat Maccas every day, they can not work out and they still look good. And it's annoying, yes, because I would love to be able to do that. But it's like that. I think that's where the body positivity comes in as a positive thing. That it's like it's the acceptance of this is what you were given. And it's okay to be okay with that.
Okay, yes.
You know what I mean?
Okay, this,
Yeah.
and I was just going to say, let's get clear on so far, what have we found common ground on and
Yeah.
what have we not found common ground on? I think what we have found common ground on is those immutable things. For body positivity for me, and what I think is really productive is saying to people, what you cannot change,
Yeah.
you have to learn to love. Because
Yeah,
otherwise you're going to
absolutely.
hate it for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's not productive. And so I was talking with a gentleman before about if you're a short dude, don't hate yourself for being a short dude
Yeah.
for your
Can't
entire
change
life,
that.
right? Like you've got to
Exactly.
embrace
Change
that. But I think where we might diverge is I very much see weight as a consequence of your lifestyle choices. So I do think that you have a great deal of responsibility when it comes to taking care of your body, and namely ensuring a caloric, eating the appropriate amount of calories, and if you are overweight, restricting your calories, as well as ensuring that you do enough exercise in order to maintain a healthy body weight. But I get the sense that might be where we diverge. Am I right there?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted dig a little deeper
Okay.
into that and see why that's the case, right? So when you see, say, a young person, let's say we had a young person here with us, and the young person is gaining weight, and we can clearly say it's because they are consuming more calories in than the calories that are being burnt out, right? If we are being body positive toward this young person, what are we saying to that young person?
I think I would say to them, it's hard, because if I was their parent and if I was someone that could kind of talk about what they were eating and know their situation, then I'd be like, hey, so why is this the case? Because I always think there's a reason behind someone eating a lot and not doing a lot with themselves, you know,
100%.
whether that be
100%.
money, like not having enough money to go out and do stuff because that's like a real issue, or like not having enough food that they can eat at home, so then they're eating a lot of food out, or the other way around,
resorting to like cheap, greasy
food,
convenient foods,
and so
which I think is a big kind of almost a systemic problem that we need to consider.
100%. Especially with the cost of living, produce, just with the nature of a lot of things, COVID, climate change, crops are deteriorating, which means that the produce that you find in supermarkets are skyrocketing in price and lower in quality. So it is so much easier, especially for people with lower incomes, to go get processed food that they know is going to feed them.
Yeah, fill them up.
And at a much cheaper price, depending on how you go. So that is an issue in itself.
And I think that's again where we'll find common ground. I think there's a conversation to be had around, we have an issue of abundance here, where the highest calorie, most sodium packed, high sugar and processed foods are extremely cheap.
Absolutely.
Right? And so what do we do to kind of manage that? Or, you know, what do we do about that? But I think so that's like, it's like another tick, okay? We're good on that side. But yeah, I guess where I still think that now I feel like we've built enough rapport for me to kind of ask a couple of more difficult questions, and you tell me if I go too far. I don't want to probe too much, but my sense is that if, let's say for example, you went to the doctor and the doctor said that you are clinically overweight and that you should lose weight in order to have better health for you and a decreased risk of something like heart disease, and that the way to do that was, you know, by the laws of thermodynamics, reducing the calorie intake and upping calorie burning, that it would be possible for you to lose weight if you wanted to, or if you had the right support structures, right?
Yeah, if it was possible for my body to do that, yeah, it would be able to. I think.
And why do you think it's not possible for you?
Because as I said, I've been doing it for so long now. Like, this is just how my body is built. My genetics.
Could it be that there's something that's not quite right in terms of your diet or your exercise?
It could be 100%. I've tried so many different things, and it 100% could be that it's not the right things that I'm doing. But as I said before, like, personally, I'm happy with where I'm at. I feel healthy. I can do all the things I want to do. I compete in karate like constantly, and like you have to have so much stamina for that. And so it's like where I'm at, I'm happy with it, and I don't feel the need to change any more of what I'm doing because I know it works for me with my life and my lifestyle.
And fair enough, power to you. If you did have that doctor's appointment and the doctor said, hey, I would recommend... Cheers, bro. You're a hero.
Good shit.
If you did have that appointment with your doctor, and he said, like he recommended to you or she recommended to you to drop the weight, would you just kind of say what you said there, where I can acknowledge that I'm at a greater risk of heart disease, but I actually feel good how I am?
I don't know, because I've never been in that situation.
It's sort of, I think you're kind of underestimating the point of that doctor's appointment. It's not like you woke up magically and you're at the doctor's. If you're going to the doctor's for heart-related reasons, and you
Or like
know
a
your weight,
general checkup. Let's say
general checkup.
And then the doctor brings it up. I mean, what would you do in an instance
If
like
I
that?
was in a situation where I was having heart problems and the doctor said you need to lose weight, as I am now, I go, okay, cool. I'd go to a dietitian that the doctor recommended me, given my situation at that moment in time. If I was, say, the fittest, healthiest, strongest I've ever been, regardless of what my weight is, and they said you need to lose weight, well, then I'd ask why.
Right. Okay.
Because there are a lot of people with like massive muscle index that would technically actually be obese rather. Like The Rock is technically obese. And that's just because of his muscle.
Well, and
and
so
like,
I mean, BMI is a very crude.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think that we can be more precise with say body fat percentages, something like that. So
I think as long as it's coming from, because there's also, it's hard in the medical industry. There's also.
I loved where you were going with
I
that.
know.
I think it's important where it comes from.
Yes, but
right?
it is. It's important where it comes from because there are a lot of doctors in the medical industry who have been in it for a while that haven't updated their practices. So sometimes you go to a doctor with an issue.
My sister would preach
And
to
they,
this.
and they just automatically go, oh, well, maybe you should just lose weight. Like, that'll fix that issue. And it's like, well, no, this is an
Or
actual
on the flip side,
issue.
maybe you should just eat more.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's
Exactly.
more going on. There's
Exactly.
more going
But
on.
if you go to a dietitian and they're like, yeah, this is exactly what you should be eating. We've done all the science behind it, and it's an informed medical decision that they're like, no, this is something you need to do. I would 100% do it. I'm like, well, if this is going to better my life, I will do it.
Yeah. Straight. Okay, cool. So I want to be respectful of your time here. I really appreciate the time that you're taking. So there were two terms that in kind of like familiarizing myself with this space, doing a bit of research for today and understanding what's going on. There were two terms that I came across that I want to run by you. One was fat phobic. So is there something in particular that you would point to and say that is fat phobic? And then I'll run the other term by you after that. Or I mean, that also presumes that fat phobia is a real thing. Like,
I definitely think it is, but I think it's more of an individual issue than a global issue.
Absolutely. Like I've always been a bigger person in my nature. And there has been multiple times where I have, like, say when I was like in my teens, I posted a YouTube video with my friends and excuse my language here, I had comments on that YouTube calling me a fat whale cunt. I was doing nothing. No association with my weight. I was just dicking around with my friends being 17. I would consider that fat phobic because it was specifically targeted to my weight when I had nothing to do with my weight in that situation.
Yeah. But I don't necessarily think it's a global.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was just an individual issue relating to me specifically.
I would just say that's rude.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's rude.
But
Okay.
it's kind of along the same lines as like, well, it's not what it is, but like in the sense like homophobia, where it's these people being aggressive and prejudiced against someone because of something that they can't necessarily control.
Okay, but I think I was with you up until that last tiny bit of they can't necessarily control. Because I think lots of people would say that you can control your weight through
But
lifestyle
not everyone,
choices.
which we talked about earlier, and
Yeah,
that's the issue.
that's-
Is you
I
don't
think
know,
is where we will disagree,
You
but
don't
that's
know
okay.
the people. You don't know their situation. You don't know if they can control it. So
But I
you
do
should
believe-
always go by they can't control it.
Well, okay, but I do believe in physics. I believe that if you drop the calorie intake and you increase the calorie expenditure, that you will lose weight.
That's fair. I believe that, yes, but I don't necessarily think it's that easy. You know what I mean?
Oh, hey,
don't
I'm with you
necessarily-
there. It's not easy. It's
no,
not
but
easy.
Like, in the sense of like, I have friends who have medical disorders, as we said before, that doesn't work for them. If they were going to be on a deficit, it would be an unhealthy deficit for them to lose weight because they just physically cannot. And that's what I mean by you can't just judge anyone. If it's a close friend, 100% talk to them about it because you know what they're eating, you know what they're doing, and that's you being concerned about a friend, and that's fine.
And to come back to what you said before around like the place that it comes from is important.
Exactly.
I think that when we are telling, say, a young person to be fat is unhealthy, it doesn't have to come from a place of fat people are bad,
Yeah.
right? That's not, nobody's saying that, but I think it can come from a place of I want the best for you, And I want to teach you how to be disciplined with your eating and with your exercise so that you can hit that ideal weight where you can prosper. Right? I feel like everyone, at least my sense is that that's a good thing.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think there's a level of we used to live in a world where people as a whole were very prejudiced about people who are overweight and would use things like fat as a slur. And I think that's where the body positivity and where it's come from with the, we're just accepting, like fat acceptance, that they're taking it, they're not realizing the backstory of fat being a slur, much in the same vein, but maybe not as extreme as homophobia, like I said before. I'm linking it to that because I am a queer woman, so that's the knowledge I have of that. Yeah, exactly. But so it's got that kind of relationship of if you're coming at it to a stranger, talking to them about being fat, it's not always coming across as being a kind thing.
Yes.
It's a lot of the time coming across as linking them to people who are dirty and like that sort of thing, when that's not the case.
Yeah, and I think that's where most of the time it's not the place of the stranger to say, hey, sorry, you got an issue with your eating and you should take care of yourself better.
I 100%
But
agree.
I do think that it's our responsibility with our friends and people that we're close with to have these conversations and say, if, like, for example, if one of my friends, boys, I'm looking at you, if one of these boys started to gain weight unhealthily, I would say to them, hey bro, what's going on?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because I know that, I know that you're capable of eating healthily and taking care of your body, and I want that for you.
Yeah.
What's going on, man? Like, do you need support or whatnot? So the other term that I came across was skinny privilege. Is skinny privilege a real thing? And if so, what is it?
I think it's again very individual, and I think some circumstances it can be. But I think it's
and
more.
What is it? What is skinny privilege?
I think it can mostly be related to. Again, we kind of grew up in a world where fat was a slur. We would judge people when we walk the street based on their weight. I think now it's definitely getting better. But skinny privilege, I find it personally in clothing size. Is that
clothing accessibility and
absolutely.
even jewelry. We literally just
Oh my God, we
shopping
just
for
got jewelry.
and we never find jewelry that fits our fingers because I just have fat fingers. And so like we were so excited that we found jewelry that actually fits our fingers because that's not easily accessible.
I often have a lot of struggle shopping for clothes. When I do shop for clothes, I have very limited brands that I can shop in person for. The rest I have to shop online, and when I do, it's often fast fashion.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily want to support.
What's fast fashion?
Fast fashion is like places like Shein, even I think to a degree Kmart.
Yeah, it's basically clothes that's made fast, quickly, low quality, just to get it out there.
Right.
And they often use
like warehouses in third world countries and
that
aren't
don't
paid very well.
I don't want to say slave labour,
But I will say slave labor.
unethical working conditions to
Yeah.
keep the prices of the clothes small.
Yeah.
Whereas I know so many local brands that I would just love to shop at, and I'm happy paying the money.
Yeah.
But when you go from a size women's 8 to a size women's 12, there is no way I will be able to look at those clothes and even see an option that might fit me.
Yeah.
And so my sense is, I guess my understanding of capitalism and free market systems is like, if there's enough demand for these products, more and more companies will go, okay, there's a demand in the market and we can produce a product that fits it. And that if there are more and more people who are going up and up in size, that those sizes will become more and more common, right? But that at the moment, if there isn't enough demand, that is to say, if there aren't enough people who are saying, hey, we want to shop from your shop for a size 12, I'm totally unfamiliar with female prices, by the way.
Yeah.
That they won't invest in actually building the infrastructure to create that piece of clothing. So that kind of makes sense to me. Whereas if I were to say that I had skinny privilege, I can walk into Kmart, Target, whatever, I'll find a size.
Yeah.
You'll find something.
Does that mean you can have like buff gym dude dis privilege? Like, I'm just imagining if you got like so big that you walk into the stores and
yeah, 100%. It's the exact same thing. Like, I'll use The Rock again. Like, he's very tall. He's very big. He probably can't shop at a lot of places because he wouldn't fit those clothes.
So he doesn't have skinny privilege.
No, he doesn't.
No.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the attitude you brought to the conversation as well.
No problem.
Yeah, have a lovely evening. Take care.
So
See you. Ladies and gents, that is a wrap for today's episode. If you believe in what we're doing here at CGC, you believe these convos need to be had instead of swept under the rug, then like the video and sub to the channel. You can also grab yourself a deck of our controversial conversation cards if you want to have more of these convos in your own life, because that really is the goal, right? It's not just about me asking the questions, it's about you taking the baton and keeping them going. So you are a part of the solution, your voice matters, and your curiosity is not a crime, even if some people would like to make you think otherwise. If you want to connect with us a little more personally and unpack some of these questions with us in real time, head on over to our Insta. We go live every week at these times, so come say hey. And lastly, remember that dialogue is the way. The goal is not to win, it's to find common ground. Keep that front and center. Thank you again for all the love and support. Take care of yourselves. With that, I will see you in the next episode. Ciao.